So, Shams Charania just dropped a report on a lot of NBA offseason stuff. So, in this video, I'm going to talk about it all. There's stuff on Simmons, Lonzo, John Collins, Colin Sexton, and the number one overall pick. So, let's start with Ben Simmons. And the news was that the Sixers are open to trading Ben Simmons, but want an all-star caliber player in return. And the teams that were reportedly interested are the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Indiana Pacers, the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Toronto Raptors, and the Sacramento Kings. So the fact that the Sixers are open to trading Ben Simmons isn't a massive surprise, obviously, given the disappointing postseason he had and the fit with Embiid, which isn't great. And want an all-star caliber player in return. I mean, that's reasonable. What they deem an all-star caliber player is certainly interesting. Like, is CJ McCollum an all-star caliber player? He's never made an all-star game, but he's been borderline a few times and may have made it this year if he didn't get injured. So it'll be interesting to see what they consider an all-star caliber player, but it tells us that they don't just want picks in return. So they're not trading Oklahoma City per se. If I think about the fit with some of the teams interested, the Cavs, I mean, it doesn't really make sense because the Cavs don't really have an all-star caliber player unless the Sixers would be super high on Colin Sexton. But I don't think the Sixers can give up Simmons for Sexton. You know, I know it's a big jump in shooting and shot creation, but the Sixers can't give up Simmons' defense and his playmaking and his rebounding and expect to still be a very, very good regular season team. So the Simmons trade thing is tough, but I don't think the Cavs are the answer. The Pacers, obviously there was the offer of Brogdon in the first for Ben Simmons, which the Sixers declined. So maybe they just don't, Sabonis is the Pacers all-star, but he doesn't fit well with Embiid. Maybe if it's Brogdon and TJ Warren or maybe Karis LeVert would be more interesting for the Sixers, but yet again, they don't really have a player that meets the criteria of all-star caliber and would make sense for both teams. Then we get to the Timberwolves, and I'm going to be honest, if the Timberwolves can get Ben Simmons and not give up Karl-Anthony Towns or Anthony Edwards, I definitely think they should. I think the fit with Simmons and Towns would be great because obviously Towns is a great three-point shooter. He could really, really help them out defensively, which has been one of their flaws. He can provide that playmaking, which Rubio can, and I just think it's a great fit all around on both ends of the court. And then you also have a go-to scorer in Anthony Edwards. I think that would put the Timberwolves in playoff contention, and I think if the Timberwolves can get Ben Simmons, I definitely think they should. In terms of the offer, I mean, probably centered around D'Angelo Russell. I know they just got him, but I think Ben Simmons is clearly a more winning player. And then for the Sixers, Russell does give you the shooting and all that, and you could argue he's an all-star caliber player. He did make an all-star game, though he was like the third replacement or something. Maybe if it's Russell and Beasley, there the Sixers get a bit more. They get more depth, more players who can fit around Embiid. So we'll see. I think the Wolves are definitely the first team I find really interesting because I think the fit really makes sense for them if they can get Ben Simmons. Then the Toronto Raptors. This one, obviously, I think the Raptors give the Raptors Ben Simmons. You think of a defense that includes Simmons and Anunoby and maybe Siakam, as well as some other solid defensive players. I think that's really, really interesting. Maybe Ben Simmons could be more of a screener in their offense, and just defensively it'd be insane. In terms of what the return would be for the Sixers, I mean, there is Kyle Lowry, a sign-in trade, though I don't think that's enough for the Sixers getting Lowry, who is a good player, but is much, much older than Simmons. Maybe the Sixers try and acquire Lowry in a sign-in trade without giving up Simmons, though the salaries and all that does get a bit complicated. The other thing that's maybe possible is for Siakam, but I don't really see that making too much sense for either team, just because there's similar-ish players. I mean, I don't know why the Raptors would do that. They're giving up shooting. They're not getting that much better defensively. And then for the Sixers, maybe Siakam can shoot the three, but it just doesn't really make a ton of sense for either team. And the last team is the Kings. I mean, I don't really know what the Kings have to offer that the Sixers would want. Like, I've seen the package of Buddy Hield, Bagley, and the 10th pick, and there's no way the Sixers are doing that. Like, it just makes them so much worse defensively that it wouldn't make sense. And then, do the Kings want to trade Fox for Simmons? That doesn't really make too much sense for the Kings either. So, we'll see. The team I like the most, I have to say, though, is the Wolves, because I think that'd be a great fit for Ben Simmons. But we'll see who trades for Ben Simmons, or if he does get traded. It'll be interesting. Okay, the next report is about Lonzo Ball, and it says the Clippers and the Bulls are interested in Lonzo Ball, and the Pelicans are unlikely to match a significant offer sheet. Because Lonzo Ball is a restricted free agent, so he can get offers from anybody, but the Pelicans have the opportunity to match it and keep him no matter what. But it says they're not, it'll be interesting to see what they consider significant. In terms of how much Lonzo should be making, I mean, I think his value is probably like $16 million a year, but obviously you get more on the open market, so I could see him getting an offer of $20 million a year from the Bulls, maybe. He has made himself into a good shooter. He's a good defender and a good playmaker. So I think he's definitely a player that can fit well in many situations. It's interesting to see, because if I'm the Pelicans, I would be pretty keen on keeping him as someone who can spot up and shoot off ball when Zion is running the show, and then is a good defender and can also play make in the open court and throw lobs to Zion. I actually sort of like the fit, but it hasn't, the Pelicans obviously aren't as keen on it. If I think about the Clippers, I mean, it's just tough because the Clippers don't have any cap space, so they couldn't just sign him. It'd have to be a sign and trade. And, with the Pelicans, if the Pelicans aren't willing to pay Lonzo $22 million a year, are they willing to pay Luke Kennard $16 million a year? So the sign and trade possibilities get tough. For the Bulls, I think it makes a lot more sense, though. They would obviously be giving up on Markkanen because they just wouldn't have the cap space to bring back Markkanen and sign Lonzo. But if I think the Bulls fit of a team of Lonzo, Levine, Patrick Williams, and Vucevic, I like the fit there. I like that Lonzo can play on and off ball with Zach LaVine. They can sort of split the ball handling duties. Lonzo can shoot the three. He can help them out defensively, which is something they need. And he can be a playmaker in the open court, and he can also be sort of a playmaker in the half court, as in he can throw an entry pass to Vucevic for a post up. So yeah, I like the fit with Lonzo in Chicago. It'll just see how much they have to offer for the Pelicans to not match, and if Lonzo wants to go there, of course. Okay. The next one is the Mavs, the Heat, the Spurs, and the Wolves are interested in John Collins. John Collins also a restricted free agent. No word on what Atlanta want to do. John Collins declined a 4-year, $90 million offer this past offseason. So I think he probably expects to make more than that, especially after the season he's had, which hasn't been incredible, but it's been pretty good, certainly in the playoffs, proving he can be a winning player, fighting for loose ball, grabbing balls, grabbing rebounds, that sort of thing. And then you would think the Hawks want to keep it together after the postseason they just had. So it'll be interesting to see if the Hawks just say we're matching anything. But if they don't, the Mavs, yeah, it makes sense in terms of Luke. John Collins can be a screener and a roller with Luka. The fit, if it's Porzingis and Collins as the front court, might not be great defensively. But it sort of makes sense. He's also pretty young, so on the same timeline as Luka. The fit with the Heat, I don't really love it. I think, with Jimmy, Bam, and Collins, it could get a bit clogged. And then how much is Collins just reduced to being a spot-up three-point shooter while Jimmy and Bam are doing their thing? Are you really paying him what would be a large amount of money to do that? So don't love the fit. The Spurs, I think, were the interesting team here. You have Jakob Poeltl, who can protect the paint, so Collins can be a 4. He can set screens, run in transition with their young guys. I think it makes sense. the Collins to the Spurs fit. It just depends on Atlanta if they want to let him go. And then the Wolves, that doesn't really make sense to me. It makes sense in that Towns can space out while Collins screens and dives, but it doesn't make sense in terms of defensively. Are you really going to bring out a lineup of like Russell, Edwards, Beasley, Collins, and Towns? Like, that team is giving up 150 a night. So I think the Wolves should be prioritizing defense this offseason. Someone like Ben Simmons. Okay, next report. The Knicks are the most aggressive trade suitor for Colin Sexton, and a rumored package could be Obi Toppin, Kevin Knox, and one of their picks this year. And to me, this makes sense. The Knicks obviously need some shooting, need some shot creation, and Sexton can provide that. Maybe with the Cavs, with them having the third pick, they want to draft maybe a guard, and it doesn't make sense to have Garland, Sexton, and another small guard on the roster. So maybe moving on from Sexton could be the right move. I mean, this package, if I'm the Cavs, doesn't blow me away. Toppin, sure, he has potential, but he's already like 23, and I think his main skill right now is screening and rolling to the rim, but since he's not a massive post-up threat, I think you can just sort of switch the Toppin screens. So what I'm more worried about for this deal getting done, if it does get done, would be the Cavs side of it, what they're willing to accept. Maybe they just don't want to pay Sexton his extension and are just willing to get a pick and some young guys. And then, yeah, as I mentioned, for the Knicks, it makes sense to get a shot creator, someone who can score from the three-point line and from the mid-range. And they can also cover for Sexton defensively because they're a good defensive team. So this move makes sense to me, probably more for the Knicks than the Cavs. But yeah, I could definitely see this getting done. And then the final report was the Rockets are aggressive in their pursuit of the number 1 overall pick to get Cade Cunningham. And, you know, it just depends on if the Pistons are willing to trade down for the number 2. All indications says they're definitely open to it. So maybe this could be a deal getting done. What the offer would be, I mean, it's 1 to 2. So would the 2nd overall pick and like a future Brooklyn pick do it for the Pistons, or do they want more? Do they want players? It'll be interesting to see what happens there, but I think definitely some potential for maybe the Rockets or even a team like the Thunder to move up and get the number 1 overall pick, and then the Pistons to get a ton of picks and a ton of assets in return. So we'll see what happens. It really depends on the team's evaluation of Cade Cunningham and the other top prospects. But anyways, thanks for watching this video, guys. Leave a like, subscribe to this channel for more NBA content, and I'll see you guys next time.